Alright, so you want to become an operator. You found out that they introduced the 18X option, which is a guarantee that if you enlist, you will have the opportunity for SFAS, Special Forces Assessment and Selection. And that's the plan. Let me tell you why that's a bad plan, okay? First of all, just the requirements for SF. You've got to have a minimum of 3 years in the military, okay? So you're going to work whatever job they give you. Whatever job the Army needs you to be in for those years until it's time for you to go to SFAS. And then, for the most part, more likely than not, you're going to fail out of that. Oh, and this is after, because another requirement is you have to have a minimum of 3 years remaining on your enlistment after the Q course, SFAS, Unit 1 training, small unit tactics. Before that, you've got to complete that and have remaining 3 years. So you've got to pretty much re-enlist before you go through your guaranteed slot for the 18X of SFAS, not knowing whether you're going to pass or not. If you don't, most likely you won't. Odds are against you. Now you're stuck in that job that the Army needs you for who knows how many years that you had to sign up for. Because remember, you're going against guys, I shouldn't say against, but out of a class of 100, the average is 12 to 18 guys pass. And these are all guys that are been in the service, have the 300 PT score, have been training for it, if they're smart, and are generally studs all around that are failing out. Now, you off the street, I mean, it's a recruiter's wet dream, is what that is. You got some guys coming off the street, watched a few movies, thinking, man, that'd be cool, that's what I want. Where do I sign? Don't do it, okay? This is what you want to do when you start. Very first thing is the ASVAB, the test you've got to take, and this is going to determine your life in the military. The kind of jobs you can get are determined by the scores that you make off that test, okay? Go ahead and get the ASVAB test book. Study it and get the best scores you can, okay? Now your options are open. Get any job you want that falls in those numbers, alright? But since you want to be an operator, I'm going to tell you the best route to take. Since you're joining first enlistment, you have the option, as long as your ASVAB scores are there, to choose what job you want, okay? Don't let the recruiter tell you different. If he wants to, say the job's taken or they don't have the slot, tell him you'll wait. If he wants to give you a run around and say, well, no, it's not going to happen, walk over to the Marines. They have the same job. The Marines take it too. You can go through the Marines, but I suggest the Army. I was Army. Okay, but look, you tell that recruiter you'll wait for it, you'll get the job. And the job is 13 Fox, okay? It's 13 series, which is artillery. And there's a reason I'm telling you to take that job and not an infantry slot, okay? Now, the reason Special Forces is so alluring is the fact that you're actually not going to be in the big army anymore. Of all the formations and people screaming and saluting and just craziness, hurry up and wait, bunch of BS. You want to get away from that. You want to work with professionals on a smaller team that have, get their marching orders and they go succeed in what they're doing. Know what to do, know how to have each other's backs, know their jobs very well and each other's jobs. You're like a family. A 12-man ODA detachment can do a hell of a lot. And those guys will be your brothers. They will be your family. That's why SF is so alluring. Get out of that big military, okay? Well, by choosing 13 Fox designator, which is, I don't even know the proper name, but what it is a forward observer, a scout, a fire support or fire call specialist is what it is. What you're doing is, say on the 105 millimeter battery howitzers, what you are doing is you're in the artillery, but you are attached to the infantry, okay? You're in the midst of those guys, but you're not in their chain of command. There's nobody in the infantry coming and chewing you out because they don't own you. They're not part of your chain of command, really. You're your own entity out there, okay? What you're doing is, and thank God they changed this because when I was in the service, you carried a radio called a Singer radio. And this big ass beast of a radio is the same kind that slid in and out of the Humvees. It took up just about all the room in the Atlas pack. Plus, you had to store a couple more batteries. And you barely had enough room to throw a poncho liner to sleep with and a couple MREs, maybe a change of clothes. And that was it. And you're at weight. Those things were heavy. Now, fortunately, they got this thing I think is called a Prick 77 or Prick 66 or something. It's basically a walkie-talkie that's got a cord that goes to a hand mic. You could throw that bad boy in your cargo pocket, clip the hand mic on your LBE, and you're going. Load all kinds of stuff. Now you can fit your sleeping bag in there, your all your pokey bait, your creature comforts that you want to take with you on the field exercise. Everything you need. Uniforms, 3, 4, 5 MREs, food you brought from, the base. Like I said, pokey bait, the good stuff. And you don't have to worry about that big ass radio. It's very nice. But what you do, and what they teach you, is a land nav, of course, because you're looking at the map all the time. When you're running with the infantry, and the infantry, boom, comes across TIC, which is troops in contact, or an opposition force, what you're going to do is, boom, you're going to take out your binoculars, you're going to range where they're at, you're going to look on the map, you're going to find out where they're at, and you're going to call in back to the battery fire mission, okay? This is to the 105 howitzers, fire mission, okay? That goes to the 13 Echoes. They've got a computer in the back of their Humvees. And you say, troops in open, 1 round HE, grid coordinates 654 728. That's just a six numbered coordinates. You're probably going to do 8s. 10 digit coordinates are real specific. 12 is like you're spot on. You're telling them exactly, but you send that out, okay? The echo's right there, computed out how much the howitzers are going to need powder charge wise to send that round that way, and where they're sending it. They call up 13 Bravos, cannon cockers. They tell them 1 round HE at grid, da 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 da. They dialed it in for altitude and attitude, you know, where they got these little things spin around and rotates the howitzer, and the shells, the 105, it's not put together. They've got powder charges. The amount of powder you put into the shell is going to determine how far that shell goes. The echoes already tell them how much powder is going in their bags that are attached by a string. So it might be 3 bags, 4 or 5. They drop them in there, hang the rest off the shell, put the tip of the shell in there, completing it. It cuts the string. They load it up. Downrange. Boom. Okay. This happens very quick too. Alright. Next mission is adjust fire. Because very rarely did that round just hit spot on. Okay. You want to get close, you want to hit them, but you want to get as close as possible. That's why you only send in 1 round. Okay. Next mission is adjust fire. Okay, that was left 40, up 50. Sending it back at grid coordinate, da 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 da. Okay? Dun dun dun, they send it, boom! 1 round of HE, high explosive. Boom! That's the mark right there. It's when you call them back, guidons, 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 fire for effect. If there's anybody left, let's say there's a big amount of people. Well, guidons mean every howitzer in that battery, because you just dialed in exactly where they were. Okay? And when you say fire for effect, you might say 3 rounds. That's each howitzer is going to load 3 rounds in succession and just boom, 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 boom. Pretty much decimate the enemy. And that's how that goes. Okay? So you as a forward observer, you're not on the front line because you can't be. If you get killed, who's going to call in, the howitzer fire? So you're back from that. You're more safe. And you're your own entity. Okay? You find good spots where you're going to hide out. Where you got good angle, view, and everything. But most importantly, you're going to lose all you're going to learn all the navigation that you need to in order to do that job. You're also going to learn how to, lay that laser on if you have like air support. You get some helicopters that are, you got to glaze a sight for that they're going to shoot that missile. It's guided by that laser that you're holding down there. You're going to do a lot of cool things. The howitzers not only fire HE, they fire Willie P, which is white phosphorus. They fire smoke rounds, okay, for concealment. You want to shoot some smoke. They shoot illumination rounds, right, to light up the sky. They shoot copperhead rounds. Pretty cool round. Thing explodes like 50 feet off the ground there and dumps 40, 50 tiny grenades out of it. They have ribbons. The ribbons are pulling the activating pin. So when the little grenade actually hits the ground, the activating pin pops in because the air drag that was holding that ribbon out pops back in. Grenade goes off. How would you like having 40, 50 grenades falling around your head, or something exploding and having all those grenades? There's nowhere to run. There's nowhere to hide. You're done. That's a fact. It's over. So you learn a lot of good things by being a forward observer. Okay? Especially, being able to call for fire. Knowing where you're at in the grid coordinates. To call in air support is a very valuable skill set. Okay? At any time, if your team, if you are SF, are being overrun and you have drones or predators or, global hawks, reapers, whatever they got out there, anything, ISR birds, you got an AC 130 gunship, who knows what air support you got. But you can call them in and pretty much get your ass out of any kind of trouble being overrun by knowing that. That's why it's so important to have. Now, if you do that job and do it proficiently, as far as the SFAS goes with all the land nav they're going to have you doing, you're going to breeze right through that. Because you're going to be fatigued going through all that. Okay? You're going to be tired. It's not a time to be learning how to nav. You know what I mean? How to find your way around. That should already be dialed in and come second nature. Because they're going to push you. Because that's what they do. They want to see how far you can be pushed, fatigued, how mentally tough you are, and can still operate. That's why the attrition rate is so high. And they have, on these nav courses, they have marches that go up to, I think, 70 miles. Maybe even 90 miles. It's ridiculous. Okay? Let me tell you another thing. If you haven't been training that aspect, you're done for. Have you ever walked around with blisters on your feet? Feels horrible. Every step is painful. Now think about doing that and knowing you've got 50 miles to go. A friend of mine was 18 Delta, which is a medic. He said his feet looked like ground beef when he graduated. Oh, messed up. The last thing you want your feet hardened. So I would say in those 3 years or before you go, and don't worry about people say, well, I won't have a guaranteed slot. Look, you get the job as a 13 Fox with an airborne contract. Not hard to do, and they need it. They need those guys, so it won't be a hard deal. Get that contract lit up. Boom, there's a plus already. You're already airborne qualified. Become an operator and go SF, you got to go to airborne school anyways. It's a requirement. It's the basics. It's static line. Okay, so you got that under your belt. Already done. Don't have to worry about it. But in the meantime, while you're doing this other job, learning that land nav, toughening up your feet, get those boots. The boots they give you come with a big metal shank down the sole. You go off post to this place, we call them the boot monkeys, whatever, because they'll shine your boots to re-sole them like cobblers or whatever. Tell them to take that metal shank out of your boot and go ahead and re-sole them. Something for sand, something good for climbing, because there's nothing but up and down hills in Fort Bragg. And that's where you'll be doing this training. Okay? That's home of the SF, and that's home for the Delta compound right there. But it's the JFK War Center, Special Forces War Center, where it was created, is right there in Bragg. Okay, that's where you're going to be doing all this. Because after Q course, SFAS, you start Unit 1 tactics and everything, you go through an FTX, which is field training exercise, but it's a mock war deal, and they call it like Pineland or something. I believe it's actually in the town of Southern Pines, which Fort Bragg has Fayetteville, Hope Mills, and then I believe Southern Pines around the Pope Air Force Base side of it. But even the town gets into it or something when they have these exercises. They play along as indigenous people and stuff there, but it's called Robin Sage. That's the name of the exercise, Robin Sage. That you go through all this stuff. You want to be completely prepared. Set yourself up for success. And know, but the great thing about it, once if you feel like, hey, maybe this isn't my cup of tea of doing this. I really don't like this. If you don't like being a 13 fox, calling for fire, doing that stuff, don't go SF. I think it's going to be better because it's going to be a lot of the same and a lot more of it. Except smaller groups with a lot more responsibility. Okay? But that's the beauty of going in under your own contract because you have the option of after your first enlistment. If you re-enlist, you can re-MOS, you can get a new job, or you can or you can pick duty station of your choice and keep the MOS you're in. Let me tell you what. You go to airborne school, you're going to Fort Bragg. Once you're airborne qualified, if you don't choose another location, let's say Hawaii or something, go to Schofield Barracks, you're not going to leave Fort Bragg other than to go to war or to Korea for a 1 year hardship tour. But that's it, you'll be at Bragg. But there's a benefit to that. If you're a family man and married, you don't have to worry about every 4 years, 3 or 4 years, going to another post. You'll be there at Bragg. You can go buy a house. But once again, I don't recommend being married and going through the pipeline for SF. There's way too much time you spend on average away from home. I'd say 9 months out of the year. You're not going to be there. You just won't. When you're not out on missions, you're doing workups for missions. When you're not doing workups for missions, let's say you're on the backside, you're going to different schools. Because remember, once you get selected and go through the 12 to 18 month, depending what your MOS is going to be, once you do all that, there's still a lot of things you got to do. That's another thing I wanted to bring up. If you want to become an operator, within those 3 years while you're learning your nav, getting your feet strong, doing additional ruck marks and stuff, training up for that on your own, learn a language. Hey, if you want to be stationed down in Florida, I think Florida is 7th group, like Clearwater or something down there, but learn French. That's the group right there that covers Africa. Okay, you learn yourself French right there. Boom. I'll tell you what. Now they're not picking where you're, what unit you're going to, because they don't have to send you to school for that. You're already qualified as French speaking. If you can tell them I'm fluent in French, boom. You know, in 7th group, you don't have to send you that school. That's as much faster. They can put you into an ODA and get you out there working. That's a good plan. And just like any of the other groups, learn the languages that you would like for where you'd want to be. I mean, 10th group, I think it's 9th or 10th group is Colorado, but the 1st Battalion is out of Stuttgart, Germany. But it's not German that you want to learn, it's another language. I mean, there's a whole list. You got to do the research yourself. But doing these things really helps you out. Now, let's talk about like the jobs of the 18 series, okay? 18 Alpha. Don't have to worry about that one because that's the officer of your ODA. ODA is a 12-man team detachment, right? team, you're gonna have 12 men. 18 Alpha is your officer. Now there's an 18O Alpha, like 18 Oscar Alpha, which I think stands for like 18 other Alpha, which is another officer, but it's a warrant officer. Okay? These officers are pretty much your go between with the command and the hierarchy and headquarters and stuff, and you. Okay? They're not going to be talking to any of the other 11 guys, or 10 guys, I should say. They're going to be talking to one of them, and that's going to be the 18 Zulu. That's your senior sergeant. Okay? Your team daddy, normally. And he's going to be, even though he's on the team and everything out there working with you, he is more back and forth between, what's going on, how the missions are going. He's collectively the mouthpiece of the team and pretty much the big man on the totem pole right there. What he says goes and all that. Okay, 18 Bravo, that's your weapons sergeant. Okay, and let me just tell you, 18 Bravo, 18 Charlie, 18 Delta, Echo, and Foxtrot, they're all sergeants. Okay, so there's no getting in between like, oh, I'm getting this 18X contract and I'm going to do basic training and maybe I have to go to airborne school and then I'm going to go through SFAS. Wrong. You're going to be a sergeant before you're on the team working. That's a fact. It's a fact. For one, they want the experience. They want you to be mature enough, have your, be grounded in the stuff, know what the deal is going on. I mean, you can train, but until you get the experience, look, here's the thing. You go through all of this. You go through selection where, hey, you get selected. You're one of the 12 to 18 guys out of 100 that made it, okay? That feels good right there. You should be proud of yourself. That was going to last you for a day to a weekend, depending on what day of the week it is. Because right after that, you're going to report to an active team. These are guys that have already been deployed, they've already been battle tested, they've already been part of the 12 to 18 guys that have passed. So once again, you're on the bottom rung. You just went from the top to the bottom in a matter of a day. Okay, it's time to prove yourself again. Now you got to keep going. BNSF is a lot of training. You train and then you train and then you train some more. Then when you're not training, you're cleaning up all your gear, you're doing workups, or you're going to schools so you can be more proficient at your job, that you can train in more, so you can do more training and more training. And then when a job comes up, well, then you're going to train on that job and mock test and repetition until it's second nature, it's muscle memory. You're doing it blindfolded. You go and it's like, you don't think about it, you do. You just go. It's a lot of work, a lot of prep for a very small amount of time. And then it's over. But you do this in order to be prepared as much as you can for everything, because shit does not always work out. You might lose half a team and you've got an exfil. You got another guy hurt. One of the guys you lost was your medical guy. Okay? It ain't looking good. All kinds of stuff. Well, that's why you've been doing all that training. That's why they put you through such hardship. It's not to see. They're not trying to break you down. They're trying to see when it's really tough and everything's going against you, you have the heart to push through, to make it. And that's what it's all about. Pretty much. But that's pretty much The highest you can go, well, Delta is the highest you can go because there's a lot of operators. There's a lot of operators out there. It's not just a tiny, tiny community. Okay. But there's also, when you're on the teams, it's like you're in the NFL. All the teams in the NFL, they're all in the NFL. Okay? But we all know that all NFL teams are not equal. And then when it comes to Delta, those are the Super Bowl guys, like New England, the ones that go 7 years in a row. You know what I mean? Those are those guys. And they know, look, Command knows the capabilities of each team and what it takes and what needs to be done. The same with SEAL Team 6, definitely. But you might have, they're all Green Berets, but you might have vanilla. They'll, separate vanilla and green, and then black. Depending on ratings, they have all kinds of different verbiage for it. Anyways, but Delta's right there on Fort Bragg. They have their own compound. You can see it. You can see like the chain link fence and a little piece of the building. The rest is kind of hidden. We drive by it and stuff, and I've asked questions, but if you were just to stop and get out, maybe try to arrest the gate, they've got early warning detection devices out there. They've probably got some Overwatch. You probably have, some crosshairs on you if you are trying to mess around out there. And I guarantee someone's going to come talk to you being out there. But it's an all-inclusive, self-sustaining little fort they've got for themselves. I even heard a little PX in there, which is like a shopping center, and their own barber and stuff. I'm sure clothes. Let's not mention guns and everything. Okay, but back to the jobs of the 18 series right there. Okay, 18 Bravo. Now back to all the sergeants. That's your first sergeant. That's a weapons sergeant. Okay, weapons sergeant. Wow, that sounds cool. Sure, they're all cool, but weapons sergeant, I think you're gonna think that that's your typical, stereotypical guy that you think SF, because everybody thinks that operators, he had to be special forces. He was big as a couch. That's not true. Yes, everybody's in shape and muscular, but there's only like, normally you'll have one guy per team that's like super jacked, huge, and the team will take one or two of those guys to haul the big stuff around. But he'll normally be the weapons sergeant carrying the squad weapon. Something that's fully automatic, like the M60 back in the day, but now they have the SAW, which is squad actuated weapon, squad assault weapon right there, full auto, throw cans and then just start mowing things down. It helps and it pins to have those big weapons, or the 240 now. They've got different ones. I've been out since '99. Didn't go out of the army, but then I contracted got back in 2006. But I'll tell you, some things like for the weapons sergeant, he's going to be like a qualified diver, for one, master diver. He's going to be a master parachutist. And he's going to be also like an endurance marathon runner. If you're not any of those, don't go weapons sergeant. If you don't want to carry that big ass automatic weapon and can't do endurance runs and aren't like a diver or master parachutist, don't do it. But the 13 Fox job right there, that's all in line for that because you're a scout. doing all that. Oh, another job is 19 Delta. Okay? That's a Cav Scout. And a Cav Scout does a lot like the Fort Observer, but he's not calling for fire to a howitzer battery or to air support. What he's doing is he's doing a lot of tracking. You learn tracking and evasion. You learn routes and nav also. That's why I want to mention it. It is a good job to have to prep before you go SF. They use 19 Deltas. Cav Scouts. He's got the ear right to command. They infiltrate the enemy and then get back and communicate the information. Command makes the decision, big decisions of whether to attack, whether to retreat, what actions to take just off what kind of intel you're gathering and giving to. It's a very important job, very dangerous one too. Okay, unlike the 13 Fox, you're not behind the infantry. That wall of lead they're spraying out there. You're in the mix of the enemy to find out troop strength, size, what's going on, giving really all that intel up. But a job like that is also good for if you go into the 18 series, would be an 18 Fox, Operation Intelligence Sergeant right there. Okay, Operation Intelligence Sergeant is just like it sounds. Do the reading on these different jobs, but if you're to get out of the military after going SF and being an 18 Fox, to do a bilateral transfer into the CIA would not be hard because you're checking a lot of the boxes that are necessary and what they're looking for. Okay, weapons sergeant, that would be a different side of the house of CIA, more of the paramilitary, directives or objectives, but operations intel sergeant, that's a good one right there. Also, what I would recommend as a 13 Fox going in would be a commo sergeant right there. Okay, you've been working the radio, you've been calling for fire, you know your nav. It's when I'm talking about boxes being checked, you're checking them all, and you're going to learn every radio system there is, and you're going to be like the combat controller of the team, doing all the comm stuff. Okay, the combat controller, commo sergeant, isn't number one in the stack when doing CQB. Okay, that's reserved for I'd say the demo sergeant, your 18 Charlie, your engineer sergeant. He does demo, he does construction, he does topography, he does all kinds of things. Probably a breacher of the group too. Okay, just like the medical sergeant, he's not in the stack. Your medical sergeant, 18 Delta, that's also your sniper. And it makes sense too. Do you want your medical sergeant in the stack going through doors, shooting? No. You want him on that long gun covering your ass, and then if anything happens to one of your boys, he's in good shape to patch up some holes on people. You don't want him in harm's way right in the immediate. I mean, everybody's in harm's way. That's a great position for him to be in. As, a sniper, and that's why they team that up. It makes sense. And there's a lot of things that do make sense. That's why the SF is the way to go if you want to get out of big army. If you want to do the SF of the big army, go Rangers. Hey, that's all you gotta do. It's like being in a sorority on steroids is what it is. Watch Black Hawk Down. Okay, those were Rangers there. when they had that one captain screaming at that SF guy. Is that clear, Sergeant? Is that clear? And he said, yeah, I hear you. That puts it in perspective right there. That's exactly what it is. Those guys are wound so freaking tight. You know, all about yelling, but there's so many of them, and that's how it works. You bark the orders, and people take them, okay, and follow them. The one thing about the big army is you do not have to think. You just have to take orders. That is it. As long as you can take orders, you don't have to think. Know your job and everything, but whatever they tell you to do, do. It's easy. You'll never be put into a position when they're going, what were you thinking? You don't have to. They're going to be chewing out the sergeant who's in charge of you. What the hell were you thinking? He gets chewed out. You don't because you're following his orders. Once again, you don't have to think. I never liked that because it was always came from top. Everything rolls from top, downhill, downhill, downhill. When it gets to you and you're lower enlisted, you're taking all the shit. You're doing all the work. It's legalized slavery, your first enlistment. Pretty much is. You make your bones, okay? And you take a lot of shit from other people just because of what they're wearing on their collar. Okay? You gotta respect the rank, not the person wearing it, but the rank. That's the bottom line. And do it. You can't, because they will hem you up. If you piece somebody up that outranks you, especially a sergeant, you're getting hemmed up. That's a no-no. They don't condone, even if you had a great reason, he called you everything, he insulted your mother. It don't matter. It doesn't matter. You don't do that. They can court martial you. Definitely Article 15 you. But yeah, don't do it. So you want to get away from that. Dig your holes. Do your exercises in the field. Do everything you need to do. You know, get through your first enlistment. As a being in the combat MOSs, especially airborne qualified. I was aerosol qualified too. Max your PT scores. Your points, promotion points are so high already. Before your first enlistment, you can go and get your E5. Automatic. No, they're not going to let you get your E5 and you say you're going to get out. But if you're high speed, your E4 promotable after 3.5 years, 3 years, and you go, hey, I want my E5. I'm going to go re-enlist. You'll get it. You'll be E5 after 4 years, but look, don't listen to the internet where they say, okay, you can have your E5 in 5 years, you can have your E6 in 6 years, you can have your E7 in 7 years, E8 in 8 years, E9 in 9 years. No, wrong. 9 years, okay, 2 enlistments. Do a 4 year and a 5 year, 9 years, you can be an E9. I'd like to see that. Be a sergeant major after 2 enlistments, not gonna happen. Not gonna happen. No way in hell it's gonna happen. First of all, they just don't hand out sergeant majors to everybody, okay? Let me tell you how it goes. E6 is the stopping point for NCOs right there. If you get past E6, you can get promoted up to E9. But they will keep you at E6 if you're not physically fit enough. If you're not good at, you're just doing the minimum to get by. You want, your retirement, this and that. That's fine. You've seen guys that were in there almost 20 years. They're still E6. Okay, that's where they stayed. Because you got to start E7 as sergeant first class. You got to start performing. E8's master sergeant or first sergeant. First sergeant's in charge of a battery. Okay, it's a few hundred people now you're in charge of. Sergeant major is in charge of a battalion. Okay, that's close to 1,000 people. He's in charge of the 3 under him. Well, actually 4. Headquarters, Alpha Bravo, and Charlie Battery are all first sergeants. okay, or directly under him. Okay, and then you have the various E7s of the group. That's as high as you're going to get while you're still working the job. Once you hit E8, you're going to be in command. Okay, you're headquartered. So there's no way the Army's going to have you after 8 years being an E8 position. It just doesn't happen like that. That's a pipe dream. I don't even know why they put that on the internet. That's a joke. Okay? But like I said, that's my advice for going in, becoming an operator and doing it that way. It's smart. If you don't, after the first enlistment, if you don't like it, look, you chose 13 Fox, you washed out of FSAS, okay? You didn't make it. Okay, you go back to the 13 Fox. You're still in your first enlistment, all right? You've got the opportunity to change your job. Hey, if it wasn't your cup of tea, hey, change your job. You know what? As an E3, they had openings for Black Hawk pilots. As long as your ASVAB scores were high enough, you could re-up, re-enlist for 6 years because it took 6 years. They wanted you to, go ahead and commit. But heck, you were going down to Fort Rucker, Alabama, start learning how to fly helicopters and go through that school. So there's a lot of other jobs if you still want to stay in and don't make it, or if you just realize that wasn't what you were expecting, or say you get injured. There's a lot of people that get injured. Don't fool yourself. There's guys that are trying to pass that course that are walking around with cracked hips, knees that are grinding, sprained ankles, everything else. Okay? Just to make it. And years after, you're going to shake your head and go, I don't know why I was doing it. But those are just my thoughts. I always like to have an option out, and that's the best plan of attack. Because let's say you did the re-enlistment because they want that 3 years after all that training. Remember, they want that commitment. You did that and you didn't make it. Okay, how many years did you just sign up for that you're going to be working a job you don't like? Because you took 18X contract and they put you on the job and say, hey, don't worry about it. You're only going to be doing that for 3 years, and then you're going off special forces. Well, if you didn't make it, you're back on that job that they didn't like. And I don't know, with the 18X contract there, I think that blows your re-enlistment choice of changing MOSs right out of the water, because that was your choice right there. And that's why I call it a recruiter's wet dream. It's not feasible. I don't advise it. What I do advise is doing it the way I said it. If you want to join the Army, go through the 90-day little program I've got going. That's going to prep you, especially for the runs. I wasn't ready for them at all. I ended up 3 weeks from graduation spraining an ankle. Then I overcompensated on my other leg for my sprained ankle. 2 weeks later, sprained the other one. I'm a week away from graduation. What it took to graduate was the final PT test. I had to make a 2-mile run on 2 sprained ankles to graduate. Otherwise, they're going to roll me back into another basic training class for 2-3 weeks, or whatever time it took to heal so I could pass that run. Well, I didn't think so. I was tired of basic training. I was ready to get out. I loaded up my socks with this stuff called Flexol 454. It was like an icy hot. Squirted it all in my socks, tied up my shoes, and started running. And yeah, I was crying. The tears were streaming. The pain was there. And I just made the time. Just made the time. But I didn't. and it was terrible. I should have worked on my legs, do the 90-day course that I've got. We haven't even done like any of the running yet. I just had you doing squats, lunges, stuff like that, just to build muscles on your legs. Only 10% of this 90-day program is actually doing the walk, jog, run part, but in conjunction with those exercises, you'll be in shape to where you can even pass, and you're not going to worry about having any sprained ankles or having those, shin splints. Those hurt. That's why I've created the 90-day program. It's for entry level people that want to go through basic training, not have to worry about passing the course. Pretty much, you won't have to worry about passing if you do that. But I'm going to sign off on this video. I wanted to address the 18x misconceptions and everything they talk about and all that. For anybody that's interested, I hope they found this information useful. And if you did, do me a favor, subscribe. Alright, this is Fox One out.